What were Gandalf and Aragorn doing for 17 years while Frodo was just living in the Shire with the most dangerous object in Middle-earth sitting in his pocket? And why does the entire plot of The Lord of the Rings, every battle, every death, every sacrifice, hinge on a miserable creature whispering 2 words in a dungeon in Mordor? So here's something that blew my mind the first time I actually read the appendices. Most people think The Lord of the Rings starts when Gandalf shows up at Bag End and tells Frodo the ring is dangerous. But the real story, the invisible story, the one happening entirely behind the scenes, starts 17 years earlier at Bilbo's birthday party, September 22nd, year 3001 of the Third Age. Bilbo puts on the ring, vanishes in front of the entire Shire, and leaves for Rivendell. And that night, while the hobbits are still gossiping about fireworks and disappearing uncles, Gandalf begins to suspect something terrible. Because he saw the way Bilbo reacted when asked to leave the ring behind, the possessiveness, the anger, the way he called it precious. And that word, precious, sets off an alarm in Gandalf's mind that will take 17 years to fully answer. And this is where the hunt begins, because Gandalf needs to know what Bilbo's ring actually is. He suspects it might be the One Ring, but he can't be sure. There's only one creature alive who can confirm it, the one who held it for nearly 500 years before Bilbo took it, a wretched, twisted, cave-dwelling thing named Gollum. And so, in that same year, 3001, Gandalf seeks news of Gollum and calls on the help of Aragorn. Let me say that again. The Heir of Isildur, the future king of Gondor, the most capable ranger alive, and a wizard who is literally an angelic being sent by the gods themselves, team up to find one tiny, pathetic creature. And it takes them 17 years. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't a weekend road trip. This is the longest, most frustrating, most consequential manhunt in the history of Middle-earth. Now, Tolkien, being Tolkien, he buries most of this story in the appendices and in a single conversation at the Council of Elrond. But if you piece it all together, from Appendix B, from Gandalf's account at the Council, from the Hunt for the Ring essay in Unfinished Tales, what you get is genuinely one of the most compelling stories in the entire legendarium. And the upcoming movie has roughly 2.5 hours to do it justice. So let me walk you through what actually happened, because I promise you, most people have no idea. The first phase is basically hopeless. From 3001 to around 3009, Gandalf and Aragorn are searching separately and together, and they're finding almost nothing. Think about the geography for a moment. They're searching the vales of Anduin, the edges of Mirkwood, the region of Rhovanion, hundreds and hundreds of miles of wilderness, and they're looking for a creature the size of a child who has spent 5 centuries hiding in the dark, who can climb like a spider, see in pitch black, and catch fish with his bare hands. Gollum doesn't want to be found. He knows every shadow, every cave, every crack in the rock. Gandalf himself says at the council that they went all the way to the Mountains of Shadow, to the very fences of Mordor, and found nothing. He says he despaired, and that word, coming from a Maia, a literally divine being, tells you how impossible this search was. But here's what they didn't know. While they were searching, Gollum wasn't just hiding, he was moving. Sauron had begun summoning all evil things to Mordor, and the ring had left such a permanent mark on Gollum that he felt that pull. Sometime during these years of fruitless searching, Gollum actually went into Mordor, voluntarily. A creature driven by 500 years of obsession, crawling toward the Dark Tower because some part of him still felt connected to the thing he'd lost. And on the way, he met Shelob in the pass of Cirith Ungol, a detail that becomes horrifyingly important later when he leads Frodo to that same spider. But Gollum got past her. He got into Mordor, and Sauron's servants captured him. And this is the moment that changes everything. Because Sauron tortured Gollum, We don't know for how long. We don't know exactly what they did, but we know what they got out of him. 2 words, just 2. Baggins and Shire, that's all Gollum gave them. But those 2 words are enough to doom the entire free world, because now Sauron knows the ring exists. He knows a hobbit has it, and he knows roughly where to look. Without Gollum's confession, the Nazgul never ride to the Shire. Frodo never has to flee Bag End. The entire plot of The Lord of the Rings, every single thing that happens, traces back to a broken creature whispering 2 words under torture in the dungeons of Barad-dûr. But here's what makes this even more fascinating. Gollum also lied, or at least he held back. He told Sauron that the Shire was near the area where he'd once lived, by the Gladden Fields in the Vales of Anduin. He either deliberately misdirected Sauron, or his own confused memory muddled the geography. Either way, this bought time, precious time. Sauron knew the word Shire, but didn't know exactly where it was. And in the world of Tolkien, where information travels slowly and geography is vast, that confusion gave Gandalf just enough of a window to figure out the truth and get to Frodo first. So, Sauron releases Gollum. Why? Because the Dark Lord is playing a bigger game. He figures Gollum will go looking for the ring, because of course he will. That's all Gollum does. And Sauron's spies can follow him right to it, use the addict to find the drug. It's actually a smart plan, but it doesn't work, because Gollum does something unexpected. He disappears into the Dead Marshes, that vast, haunted swamp full of the ghostly faces of warriors who died thousands of years ago at the Battle of Dagorlad, and he hides there, in the one place so horrible that even Sauron's spies don't want to go. And this is where Aragorn has his greatest moment that nobody knows about. In the year 3017, or early 3018, depending on which version of Tolkien's notes you follow, because even he kept revising the dates, Aragorn, by chance, finds Gollum's trail leading away from Mordor and tracks him into the Dead Marshes. And that detail, by chance, matters enormously in Tolkien's world, because nothing is truly accidental. Providence, fate, Eru Ilúvatar working through what looks like coincidence. But regardless of the deeper cause, think about what happens next. Aragorn willingly walks into the Dead Marshes alone, hunting a creature that has survived for 5 centuries on pure cunning and spite. He finds him and he captures him alive. At the Council of Elrond, Aragorn describes this with the driest understatement imaginable. He bit me and I was not gentle. That's it. That's all he says about capturing one of the most elusive creatures in Middle-earth in one of the most dangerous landscapes in the world. Classic Aragorn. And then comes the journey that I genuinely hope the movie spends serious time on, because it's incredible. Aragorn has to drag Gollum, biting, screaming, clawing, miserable Gollum, 900 miles from the Dead Marshes to Thranduil's realm in northern Mirkwood. 900 miles, on foot, with a prisoner who won't shut up and won't stop trying to escape. According to Tolkien's notes in Unfinished Tales, this journey took about 50 days. 50 days of walking through wilderness with Gollum on a leash, essentially. They crossed the river Anduin twice. They passed through territory that wasn't exactly friendly, and Aragorn had to keep this creature alive and relatively intact because he was the only source of information Gandalf needed. When they finally reach Mirkwood, Aragorn hands Gollum over to the Wood Elves of Thranduil. That's Legolas' father, by the way, which is a connection most people don't make. And Gandalf arrives shortly after to interrogate Gollum personally. And what Gandalf learns in that interrogation is the final piece of the puzzle. He learns about the ring. He learns about Bilbo. He learns about the finding in the goblin tunnels. And with that information, he races to the Shire to warn Frodo. The timeline is insanely tight. Gandalf arrives at Bag End on April 12th, 3018, which is basically the moment the story of The Lord of the Rings as we know it finally begins. But here's the detail that makes my stomach drop. While Gollum is imprisoned by the Wood Elves, they take pity on him because Tolkien's elves are compassionate to a fault sometimes. They let him climb trees. They let him sit in the branches and feel the sunlight. And one day, during an orc attack on the outskirts of Mirkwood, Gollum escapes. He slips away in the chaos, and from that moment, he begins trailing the Fellowship, the same Fellowship that his own tortured confession set in motion. He follows them through Moria, through Lothlorien, through the Emin Muil, all the way to the very end, and ultimately, it's Gollum, wretched, ruined, pitiable Gollum, who destroys the ring at Mount Doom, whether by accident, by fate, or by something deeper that even Tolkien only hinted at. The creature whose 2 whispered words started the war is the same creature who ends it. And this is why I think the Hunt for Gollum movie could be genuinely special, because this isn't just a prequel about chasing a CGI creature through swamps. This is a story about the invisible architecture of fate in Tolkien's world. It's about how 17 years of patient, unglamorous, largely unsuccessful searching by a wizard and a ranger set the stage for everything. Without Gandalf's suspicion in 3001, nobody would have been looking for Gollum. Without Aragorn's capture in the Dead Marshes, Gandalf would never have confirmed the ring's identity. Without that confirmation, Frodo would never have been warned. And without Gollum's escape from Mirkwood, there would be no guide through the Dead Marshes later, no one to bite the ring off Frodo's finger at Mount Doom, and the quest would have failed. Tolkien understood something that most fantasy writers don't. The most important events in history are often the ones nobody sees. The 17 years between Bilbo's party and Frodo's departure aren't a gap in the story. They are the story. Everything that follows is just the consequence. Now, I have to address the elephant in the room. They're recasting Aragorn. Viggo Mortensen is not returning. And look, I get it. The timeline demands a younger Aragorn, and Viggo has been pretty clear about his relationship with this franchise, but whoever steps into those boots needs to understand something. This isn't the Aragorn of the trilogy. This Aragorn isn't rallying armies or claiming thrones. This is Aragorn at his most stripped down, a ranger in the wild, sleeping in the dirt, tracking a creature through swamps for years. It's less epic fantasy and more grim detective story. The right actor could make this the most compelling version of Aragorn we've ever seen. The wrong one could make it a footnote. And then there's Gollum. Andy Serkis is this character. He has been for over 20 years. But the Gollum of this story is different from the one we know. This is Gollum freshly released from Mordor, traumatized, tortured, even more broken than when we meet him in the Two Towers. The performance Serkis needs to give here isn't the one with the split personality arguments by the pool. It's something darker and rawer, a creature running on pure survival instinct, hunted by a man who won't stop coming. And honestly, if they nail Ian McKellen's Gandalf in the investigation phase, the wizard who is slowly, dreadfully realizing that the most dangerous weapon ever created is sitting in an unsuspecting hobbit's pocket, that alone could carry the film. The scene of Gandalf questioning Gollum in Thranduil's dungeon, hearing the words Baggins and Shire for himself, and understanding with horror what Sauron now knows. That's the scene that needs to be the centerpiece. That's the moment the entire Lord of the Rings goes from possibility to inevitability. So yeah, the hunt for Gollum, 17 years, 2 words, 900 miles of dragging a screaming creature through the wilderness, and the fate of the entire world hanging on whether a wizard and a ranger can find one small, wretched, nearly invisible thing before the enemy does. If that's not a movie, I don't know what is. December 2027 can't come fast enough.